Yes.
All right. Welcome to the Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust meeting of June 18th, 2024. My name is Annika Van Eaton, and I am Managing Trustee of the Job Creation and Retention Trust, and I call this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a supplemental budget bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. This extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. This session will be recorded, will be a public record, and I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Thomas Bent.
Present.
Vicki Coyce.
I am here.
Silvana Dinka.
Present.
Jim Hatchie.
Present.
Wilfred Mba. Not present. Rachel Ned Carney.
Present.
Annika Van Eaton. Present. Rand Wilson.
Present. In the car.
Alrighty. We have a quorum, and I will now ask city staff to present a few rules about the technology. William, take it away.
Thanks, Annika. So as you all know, my name is William Blackmer, and I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator and serve as staff to the Job Creation and Retention Trust. Tonight's meeting is being held using a hybrid format. We ask for patience as we navigate our new setup here today. When an agenda item is being presented, presentation materials received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If the chair asks for a public comment, please use your raise hand function if you are on Zoom, or raise your hand if you're here in the room to speak. And Annika will unmute you or allow you to speak. Please keep in mind, just all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and second, and the chair will call on each board member for a yes/no vote in alphabetical order. And for those of you on Zoom, comments in the chat box will be part of the public record. One-to-one chat has been disabled in order to comply with public records law. So I'll pass it back to Annika for the first item.
Thanks, William. So we have some exciting news about one of our vacancies on the board. William, can you share your exciting news?
Yeah, sorry that I feel weird with my back to you guys that I'm in the room with. So I shared this by email, but last week we made the city council agenda. The city council confirmed a business representative for the JCRT seat, filling the seat that was previously Colleen's. Jacob Luria is president and founder at N1 Health, and he is not able to join us tonight, but I'm looking forward to having him moving forward. So we'll get a round of introductions and things on the next month's agenda.
Awesome. Thanks, William, and thanks for shepherding that process through. Appreciate your work on that. And we look forward to welcoming our new member to the board.
They'll have a full board then, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah. That's exciting.
It is.
Our next item is our customary review and approval of the May 9th meeting minutes. They have been sent in advance. I thought they were very thorough. I felt great about them, but I'll give folks a chance to see if there's any changes that you would suggest, and then I'll entertain a motion to pass the minutes.
I thought they looked good. Motion to pass the May 9th, 2024 minutes.
I second.
All right. All in favor of passing the May 9th, 2024 minutes? Tom Bent.
Yes.
Vicki Choice.
Yes.
Coyce, sorry. Silvana Dinka.
Yes.
Jim Hatchie.
Yes.
Rachel McCarney.
Yes.
Great. Annika Van Eaton. Yes. Rand Wilson.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't read them.
Ethical, Rand. Love it. I think that motion still passes.
Yep.
So that will be committed to the record. Our next item is reviewing our estimated linkage fees for 2024.
Thanks. So I'm just gonna switch my screen around and bring this up.
Good job, William.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have no updates this month. We still have a very large total, the expected 2.7 that may arrive by the end of the calendar year, but we're sitting still on that 1.1 as of tonight. So I don't know if there's any questions about this list. Okay, I think we can move on to our first vote of the night. So, Annika, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thanks, William. All right. Alrighty. So we have a couple votes tonight. The first one I want to touch on is related to the mental health subcommittee. So one of the materials that was shared in advance of the board was the memo about the mental health subcommittee's distribution recommendation. So as a reminder, last fall, in response to our 2022-2023 investment priorities, we approved an obligation of $100,000 to fund a mental health, resilience, trauma, and trauma-informed approaches training for staff of social services providers. Then we put out the RFP, and the RFP resulted in one response. That was from the Corporation for a Skilled Workforce, who proposed their trauma-informed and resilient Somerville, TMR Somerville program. William has sent along a memo that covers highlights of the program. The subcommittee met and reviewed the RFP. The subcommittee was myself, Sylvana, and William, and met to discuss it. We thought the proposal was really well detailed and thorough, that it met all of the criteria laid out in the RFP. And so we are proposing move forward on this, and are proposing a vote for the amount that Corporation for a Skilled Workforce requested of $99,999.99 for the Trauma Resilient Somerville training program. So I'm going to pause there and let folks look through the memo if you haven't had a chance to already. See if anyone had any questions before we would move to a vote.
I just had one. Who is the Corporation for a Skilled Workforce? I've never. It's a new one on me. I think I tried looking them up too.
Okay, yeah. So this is the organization I work for.
Okay.
Corporation for a Skilled Workforce has been around for 32 years.
I knew I heard it before. I didn't put the connection together.
Yeah, and based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but a national nonprofit that works with workforce development organizations, higher ed institutions, employers, nonprofit organizations to improve workforce development services. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's 25 of us, virtual organization, and I run the trauma and resilience team.
Okay, great. I think, looking at it, I was good with it too. It's funny, today I had, was an insurance seminar, and it was about mental health with, for employees, and, what employers should be looking out for, what employees should be looking out for themselves, So it was very short, but it was very detailed, but it was actually really pretty good. I'm trying to get the PowerPoints, I'll forward them over to you. It was by Federated Insurance.
Okay.
They did a pretty good job on it, I thought.
Are they going to give you an insurance discount if you provide mental health supports?
Nobody asked that question, but I will now.
You should get it. Yeah, because it's proven to reduce safety violations and, problems on the job. And also mental health supports reduces the number of sick days people take.
Well, what they kind of do is they kind of equated it, because they do a lot of these seminars, but a lot of it's for like workplace, hazards and things like this. And they were making the point how this can be right up there with a lot of, physical hazards that you encounter all the time. So I thought it was really interesting. So yeah, I'll see what I can get for you.
Rachel, I see you have a question.
Not a question, but more of a comment. We had a situation not so long ago, just in the last couple of weeks, where a participant in one of our programs created a challenging environment for the staff, and I'm just excited to see this work proceed, because the staff who were handling that situation already had this kind of training and were able to really address it very professionally and politely, and to be able to support the rest of their team. So I do see a lot of value for anybody who's engaging with the public and having this access to this kind of training. And I think starting with our folks who are really frontline is going to be really important.
Thanks, Rachel. So with that, would anyone make a motion for this?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Second.
Awesome. I didn't hear who seconded. Somebody seconded.
Rachel
seconded.
seconded.
Awesome.
They
Thanks,
still
Rachel.
move around on the screen.
Oh, I was looking down. We're stationary though.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so all in favor of approving a funding distribution of that's wrong, of $99,999.99 to a corporation for a skilled workforce for the Trauma and Resilience Somerville. This is a vote. Trumpet.
Maybe one amendment to that.
Yeah, please.
Let's give them the 1 cent so that it's just an even. I'm sure for the accounting end, it'll.
I don't
Share
think
your
we can do
account
that,
is like-
actually. Right, William?
We'll sort it out.
Okay.
I'm sure.
It's just an accounting nightmare, I know it is.
Yeah.
For everybody.
It's okay. I've worked with some.
This time, just the camera traffic may have died down some.
All right, Tom, Ben,
Yes.
Vicky,
I will have to abstain from this vote.
Silvana Dinka,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Annika, yes. Rand,
Vicky, why are you having to abstain? Can you explain it, or is it?
It's my organization, and I would have a vested interest, so I can't, if I want to work on this, I can't influence the decision on the programming and the funding.
Okay, that makes sense. I vote yes.
all right. Thanks, Rand. And measure passes with
Yay.
6 votes. Yay! All right. Super excited to get that work started.
And we did say that board members could come to the trainings if they're available and if they want, right? We talked about that before.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, we have a second funding obligation. We have a funding obligation vote, a second vote for funding obligation. So earlier this month, the Contextualized English as a Second or Other Language, ESOL, and Adult Education Subcommittee members met to talk about the board's top priority for 2024. And the main chief among the discussion was to propose an amount to obligate towards an upcoming RFP. And our subcommittee is proposing a vote to obligate $750,000 to ESOL and adult education. So if this vote's finalized, then we'll work on, if this vote is approved, then we'll work on finalizing an RFP for release. And this amount is the same as what we approved last time we did an RFP for this topic. And subcommittee members thought it also reflected a lot of the numbers that folks had put in our initial funding estimate exercise last meeting. Does anyone have any questions on that before we move to a vote? Jim?
So is that timeline, is that over 1 year? that funding will be spent over 1 year. Is that what it is?
Yeah, we can clarify that. My intention with the RFP was that it would be for the academic year, so programs that are in the fall and spring. But we can, if anyone disagrees, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just curious. Thank you.
And we figured that we would fund multiple organizations, so it wouldn't just be one organization that the whole lump sum would go to.
Yeah, what was it? Was it a couple organizations last time, right? Those are the people that did the presentation. Got it. Thank you.
Just Bunker Hill scale, right?
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
A second.
I second.
Okay. I'll Silvana second. So Rachel, is this a question?
Sure, thank you.
It's more of a thought. So just relating to what Jim was mentioning. So one of the things that I just want to pick up on that where we ran into last time, and maybe we won't run into this time because we're hopefully out of COVID far enough, was that for some of the providers in our programs, we've had them not actually been able to fill their seats in the one academic year. And so there's been a rollover, and we've had various votes over the last couple of years to allow them to continue to fill seats. And so I do think just like keeping an eye on that like while we intend for it to be 1 year, it may be that like we're trying to figure out how we be flexible. One of the things William and I have been talking about, and actually our whole team has been talking about, is how do we be flexible with our providers that like it doesn't take a ton of paperwork to like move it to the next semester if they couldn't fill the seats.
Does this mean that we need to have an extension of a year, academic school year?
So I think for our vote right now, we're obligating the amount of money, and then William will do the work of putting an RFP.
I can connect with the subcommittee team about the timeline, because we'll put kind of a budget sheet into the RFP, and there's two approaches. One approach is that we put the start and end date and say what is the budget needed for this, or we don't fill in those sections to let the provider indicate the timeline that they can deliver this on.
Okay, so we have an obligation to vote on the floor to obligate $750,000 to ESOL and adult basic education. All in favor? Tom Ben,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Annika, yes. Rand,
Yes.
all right, measure passes.
Alright.
Great.
Cool, awesome.
Rock and roll.
Okay. So the next piece that we want to talk about is picking up from the conversation we had at our last meeting to think about how much we should save versus spend in 2024, and try and think through a little bit how much of the expenditure should be obligated towards each priority. So tonight we are going to be doing an activity to continue this conversation. We're here in person, and then on the computer, William, can you put the Google sheet back in the,
Sure.
I think maybe put it in the chat and then
Yeah.
share it out.
So we have a link in the chat to the document that we started last time that we'll pick up from.
Okay, cool. And then can you share your screen?
Yeah.
And we can also see them at the same
Sure.
time?
Let's see.
Move if we break them out into two different screens. I think that's going in the,
If I do a pop out, is that gonna?
like only showing them that way. What if you
I'm gonna.
like pull the Zoom tab out of the, like make it its own? Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will be confusing.
Sorry, we're just working on our technical side here.
Yeah, you all can open up the spreadsheet and start checking it out. And we'll go through it in a second. Oh, nice. I think that's,
There we go.
Four, oopsies. We have
maybe we make them really small on the side.
on this side.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just not gonna be able to see everyone at the same time. But I can click through
Okay.
people, I think.
And then there it's sharing.
Do we want this larger or smaller?
I think whatever is easier for you to show the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Because I was thinking maybe we like walk through the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
To remind folks of what it is.
So actually priorities 1 and 8 are already done.
Yeah, check.
I like it, being ahead of the game.
Okay.
Alrighty.
We're gonna have to work with some version of this, but
No, that's pretty
let me know. I can scroll as we're going through.
Alright. So at the top, we are looking at our current uncommitted balance, 1.1 million.
Which just went down because we
Right.
made an application.
Right.
So it's down like
Um,
850,000.
$750.
No, it's 750 plus the 100, right?
The 100 is
we
already
we
uh,
already
taken
Oh, okay,
care.
all right. Okay.
Oh, I should, oh goodness. I wanted to make it an equation. Anyway, sorry, Annika.
Yes,
Keep going
we
now.
have
I just can't do the mental math.
400,000-ish.
Oh
Oh,
my God.
I'm just giving us a raise here. So we have, I think, 400,000-ish dollars left. And then we'll get more money in this year.
Okay, 350,000. Is that checking out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have $350,000 left in hand, like that we currently have in a cupboard in William's office. And then our potential uncommitted balance by December 2024 is 3 million, right?
Yeah, roughly 3 million.
Okay.
3,050.
So with the money that we have coming in from other fees, we anticipate we will have $3 million. So that's the 350. Could you put a, yeah, sorry, could you
These-
put comments?
Yeah, these numbers are looking very confusing.
There's just like so many zeros.
Yeah, and it's like this.
Which is, it's just really good. It's just
Zeros.
it's all blurring together. My eyes can't count these zeros.
Where did you get the 3? You know, I'm just looking at this total.
Oh,
2.75.
Mm.
2 point. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what's shown for 2024.
Yeah, we have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
On the
to.
spreadsheet for 2024, it shows funding expected 2,750,000. Yes, $757,274.
On the linkage fee.
Yeah,
tracker.
okay. What is the question?
How come it's 2.7
And you
there
have,
and
you have
3
3
million
point,
here?
yeah, you have 3.
The 350,000 that's
Left,
not committed.
1 million.
Oh, so is this the money? This is the money coming in?
Yeah, so there must have been some.
William, I think I fixed it.
Yeah. So
Okay,
this is
sorry.
coming in, and then we had like $1 million.
It should just be the
About the city charter that we have, that.
formatting as,
Chief Administrative Officer position, that charter has.
So this should be,
This is
There we go.
the second, this is
Okay.
the third one.
so just to address the math, I'm gonna jump back over
Oh, cool. Thank you.
to this sheet. We have the 1.1 minus the 750,000.
Mhm. We just obligated.
Yep, that we just obligated. That's actually giving us 372 because we have a little over 1.1 plus the 2.75 that we're expecting from these projects here. And that's what's bringing us to just over 3.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then the piece below this section is all of the priorities that we voted on, that we ranked and voted on at the end of last year. And so priority number 1, the contextualized ESOL and adult education, we have already obligated money towards that. So priority number 1, taken care of. And then going down the list, priorities 2 through 10, we have each of the pieces that we ranked. And then on the notes on past spending, it explains what we've done in the past. And under already obligated, the next column, if we skip down to industry-specific training, for example, in the past, we did $400,000 to industry-specific training. And as an already obligated, we have $400,000 obligated towards a good municipal jobs training program. And we have $250,000 that was left unspent from our 2023 RFP. And $300,000 for child care career advancement initiatives that we are waiting to see what happens with the state budget on if there's going to be anything at a state level that might meet the goals of what we were working on. So that's a refresher on what the spreadsheet is. And the idea of this conversation is for us to talk about what we want to do, like try and get a sense of how much we want to save and how much we want to hold. So we're doing this because while we might have, or what we should have, about $3 million at the end of the year, we are expecting to not get, wow, why does it keep doing that? It's fun. It just threw me off. Sorry, folks on the screen, there's like a screen thing that happens. I won't go into it, it's a little distracting. So anyway, we're not expecting to get a lot of money next year and in coming years. And so we're trying to have a conversation around if we get like no money next year, we want to think about how much money we want to have on hand. And so if we look at the money that we have currently in hand, the $350,000, or yep, $350,000, the $3 million that's coming, like we could say like we actually only want to spend this $350,000 amount this year. And then would we want to spend $1 million next year and $1 million the next year, or would we want to like have the option of doing that? So that's a little bit of what we want to talk about. And so I think last time we had done this where we had started filling out in our spreadsheet the amounts that we were thinking of for this. And so I think for our time together now, we both want to maybe look at the numbers if you put numbers on your spreadsheet and see like, does this feel right now? But then also have a conversation with each other around what folks are thinking when they're looking at the priorities. What do they see that they want to be spending money on this year? About how much do you want to hold for next year? Yeah, that's what we're looking for this conversation. So maybe on the Zoom front, since we did the spreadsheet tour, we can open up their window again so we can see everybody. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Like, for example, Jim has his hand raised. Jim, here you go.
Thanks. I have just a clarifying question. The $400,000 for good municipal jobs, what does that entail? I know it really has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just curious on what that entails, that 400,000, and that's already spent. Is that what we're considered? So I think if you go over to the right on your sheet there.
Yeah, so the $400,000 is not already spent, it's set aside. So it's like reserved on the side, with the goal towards going for the Good Municipal Jobs training program, which would be trainings that folks could complete that are sort of positioned that they would be getting skills to be able to fill city jobs. I think the vision for this was sort of a partnership between city, training, union stakeholders, and others to try and create career pathways into city jobs. And I know there's some folks from the municipal jobs subcommittee here, so if you want to add a little more context to that, I think that's also helpful.
And that's through Franklin Cummins Tech, is that what I'm seeing?
Pardon?
That was a great description.
Yeah, especially for not being on the committee.
Thanks, Rand.
And that's through Franklin Cummins Tech, so they have the grant?
No, the grant is not out yet. The grant doesn't, there is a 400, I see what you're referencing. There's, we did put out $400,000 to industry-specific training programs, and that went to Franklin's Cumming Tech just to start, and Mass Cultivated.
2003, right?
Cultivated. Yeah, so that was from a 2023 RFP. That money has already been spent, and that's out.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
that's gone.
Yeah.
And then we have $400,000 in a special place that's obligated towards the Good Municipal Jobs Training Program. And then in addition to those other numbers that are in that, the $250,000 is also from the 2023 RFP that has not been spent. And that is, like, I don't even remember. We didn't get enough applicants to spend it all. So it's like extra from what we had before.
Yeah.
And then the $300,000 was obligated to a childcare career effort, and that has also not been spent yet. So we have a total of $950,000 that has been obligated and not spent out of those three pieces.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Set aside.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for the clarifying questions. Rachel?
So my gut and watching the trajectory of the lab market is to hold a fair amount in reserve, so that we can offer continuous programs in 2025 and 2026 without there being a slowdown in our spend rate. And so for me, what I was looking at is that, like, in this particular priority 5, that maybe this one, when I did this exercise last time around, I put a 0 in this line because we have that 950 that is yet to be spent. I did want to just clarify that with the 250 that was unspent from our RFP, I'm assuming we need to actually go out and RFP that again, probably, right?
Yeah, so we would put out a new RFP, and there, yes, we would have to.
Yeah, and so I feel like industry specific training, I feel like it's been one of the things that we've spent a lot of our funding on, and I think that is really core to the mission. And so it feels right to me that that would be an area that we spend a lot of funding on. But given how much we have in that pipeline currently, I feel like there, in my mind, I was like, this might be one of the places that we don't need to obligate a specific amount for at the moment, because we could reallocate that 250 out again and continue to offer opportunities.
I think everybody before
Thanks,
had a
Rachel.
0 on that too,
Mhm.
the ones that filled it out.
Yeah,
So,
Tom was referencing, do you want to say that?
yeah, no, I
On the
was,
computer.
while you were talking, Rachel, everyone that filled out the sheet the last meeting basically had that as 0 also.
Mhm.
So I agree with you. You know, I think, let's see what happens with this, and to see what kind of responses we get to the new RFP. And then we can evaluate that as we go forward. But I agree too. I think, you know, we're gonna need to hold back a significant amount of money so that we can spread it out over 25 and 26.
I was gonna put a 0 question mark, but then that's gonna throw off an equation. So I'm just
Put a 0.
yeah, I'm just gonna
We'll know
note
what it is.
for the group that we're leaning towards 0 for that priority.
Thanks, William.
And I just did a quick add up of what we had the last time, and then, you know, I was using you up it, but then I was filling in everybody else. So
Yeah, nice.
it was a little up and down between some of these, but it roughly comes out to like 560,000 of,
After the,
after not including the 750.
Right.
Yeah. So, and if we only want to spend 350 of it, then that's kind of where we are.
Rand?
I'm also inclined to be conservative because
Rand, you're a little robot-y. I feel like I'm hearing you say
I think that's-
hard to hear.
there could be a significant downturn, then trust people better. I'll put my comments in the chat.
Man, you were clear at that last bit. Do you want to try again? You sounded a little bit like a robot.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm inclined to be conservative because I think if there's a downturn in the economy, our services might be more relevant, more needed. We need to be able to respond to, you know, increased unemployment or a shift away from one industry to another, whatever. So I'd like to be able to spread it out.
Thanks, Rand.
I was just gonna bring up on priority 2. I think what we had on, that was the development of workers' rights curriculum.
Mhm.
I think we stated that we didn't spend any money on 23 when the city was hiring staff to evaluate some of the landscape and needs. So would we allocate any money for that this year, or are we waiting to see what the city comes up with? So I don't know if Rachel could talk to that one or not.
Sure. So just an update on the timeline of the position. I know this has come up before, and also want to say a deep thank you to everyone for reviewing the job description. So where we are is that the job description is now back with law and HR. We're trying to just double check how the ordinance, there's some language in the ordinance that has to be like meshed in with the more, like, it's a little bit more authoritative than the design of the position that we had been working on. And so we're trying to double check that we aren't gonna put a person in a conflicting place in terms of what their responsibilities are. So we're double checking all that. It might take us a little bit of time to work through that. And so but it is in process. So one of the things we were talking about as a team earlier today was, you know, because it might take a little bit of time, there is a question of if we wanted to see a workers' rights training happen realistically, but with the timeline for hiring, like in the fall, we might want to allocate a little bit to make sure something happens. But that's the question. I don't know if maybe, I know Rand, you're pretty close to this work. Like, do you know if there would be a value in sort of like moving forward with something that like fills that time, like does something this fall, that knowing that there's a position that hopefully, on track to be filled, and that person will get really rolling and being able to offer things hopefully in the spring.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I heard the mayor include this into her budget. And if we can get somebody hired, then it would really be great to complement that with some funds from the trust for training that would complement the new position. So I would really like to wait until we have somebody on staff, then have the training go along with it. So it makes a lot of sense.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions about this one?
So what would we be, so is this being funded by the city, this person, and what would our role be in it?
Yeah, Rachel.
Do you want to take that, Rachel, or do you want
Sure, I can try. So the role is funded on the general fund. We are working again towards that hire. So the role of the Jobs Trust might be something like supporting buying pizza, renting a space if we needed to, things like that are not contemplated, but without that person in the seat. And also marshaling, one of the roles of the person in that seat is going to be the marshal the energy of the organizations that are participating in the Wage Theft Advisory Committee. There may be enough resources across those other groups that I don't know what the trust need would look like. My expectation though is that we're talking relatively small dollars in comparison to hiring an individual.
So do you think something like 10 grand?
That was actually that's the number I put down. But was wondering, like, there may need, between now and October, like when we meet again, I don't know that we would need to spend that, because it'll take a little bit to, we've still got to get our HR's final sign off and the grading of the position done. And then for the actual hiring to, it has to be posted, open a few weeks, interviewed,
They might not really be off the ground until next year.
Yeah, so it sounds like we might want to put this in the 2025 bucket.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're thinking 2024 bucket, 2025 bucket, maybe 2026 bucket. Purchase and that one.
That's what I think. Yep. Zero that.
All right. And then on year 13, this is,
Didn't spend, right?
let's see, there was a piece where we got funding to cover the coaches. Okay, ARPA funds are covering the coaches through December 2024.
through June? Sorry,
Oh, through
Right.
June, right, okay.
Yeah,
Through
there was an
June.
extension.
June of 2025.
All right, awesome. Cool, that was what I remembered. But isn't the piece that covering Bunker Hill's tuition and fees doesn't have funding, and so that could be something that the jobs board could cover?
So I will do my best to clarify, but I also have Jen on the call too, so she might, Jen, jump in if I'm misrepresenting. So we have the two coaches that presented at the meeting. We have them funded through June of 2025. The $150,000 grant services agreement with Bunker Hill is actually currently underway. So that does not seem to be where the financial need is right now for that program. The financial need for that program would more so be addressing emergency situations that are coming up for students. For example, there's been several students that have had trouble paying for room and board that are not going to Bunker Hill. And another area would kind of be similar to thinking about the priority we just talked about, the programming that goes along with those budgeted positions. So if they want to do workshops on FAFSA, if they want to offer stipends for participants not leaving their job to attend workshops on FAFSA, on college success, how would we be paying for that? So it's kind of both of those pieces are where it seems the need has shifted to make the program successful through June.
Okay, cool. That's super helpful. And did this program have that type of like non-personnel, non-tuition budget before that they found useful? Like for us to get a sense of what we should spend, or is this amount in here, the $5,000 and then the $95,000 question mark, like what they're estimating would be helpful based on what they've seen from the past year?
Yeah, those are the numbers we kind of came together collectively as a team today, but just preliminarily thinking, what do we wish we had access to with the current students that we don't have access to? And then, after that, there's of course the questions of, okay, if we have an emergency fund, how is that getting dispersed? Are we paying, to the schools, the institutions themselves? Are we paying someone who's facilitating workshops? Are we having these coaches facilitate workshops? So these are all kind of like the later questions, but the summary is that that's the approximate need that's been identified at this time.
Thanks, William. That's helpful.
So Bunker Hill is handling this? They're providing, the two full-time success coaches, and then
No,
that's where I'm a little confused. I'm just trying to read through this and so where do the two success coaches come from?
Rachel, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So the two success coaches actually work for the city. So they are colleagues of William and Jen and I. And so they are ARPA funded city employees.
So do they have experience in this, or to me, sounds like it would be something like a guidance counselor or something like that would do at the high school.
So they're very experienced. So they presented here a few months ago, but so it's Chadi Salamoon and Regina Carey. Regina came to the city from en route. She'd been working with this exact student population at Somerville High School before joining our team. And then Chadi Salamoon was a English as a second language teacher, and as well as having a degree in planning and economic development.
So then how does Bunker Hill tie into this?
Many of our students are at Bunker Hill, and so the supports for our students that are at Bunker Hill are sort of synced up through a grant service agreement. And Jen, please jump in and tell me where I'm messing this up.
That's exactly right. So Tom, those funds are going to those students. It is just rolling out. It just started this month. And so the reason why you're hearing William's narrative is that this is all very new. We're watching it play out. We're not sure where everything's going to go, but we are already seeing the needs of things that are not funded. Maybe William will be upset with me, but I heard Vicky say also thinking about FY26. And so I will always put a plug in to keep the two of them permanently or through the trust. So that's an idea too that we've been talking about.
Okay, so again, I'm just trying to vet it all out. So the city coaches would have to be in coordinating with somebody at Bunker Hill, I would assume, right? Now,
Yes,
I'm surprised Bunker Hill doesn't have some kind of career coaching as part of what they're doing, but I guess they're
Well,
not.
so these are for students who
Yeah.
graduated from
Right,
Somerville
yep,
and then haven't all immediately enrolled in college,
okay.
right? And so the coaches are working with them to figure out where they want to go. And then some of them are enrolling in Bunker. Do
Okay,
I have that right?
yeah, I'm just trying to follow the line.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
yep,
like it's for tuition and fees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
the Bunker Hill fees.
okay.
Yeah, and if I can add, so I think almost to a T, all of our students that we're working with are both on a career trajectory and doing college part-time. There are a few who end up in full-time programs, but for the most part, they are all part-timers. The ones that are full-time are also usually working too because they're supporting family as well. So they're really, the goal of the coach is to help them figure out their path, whether that's going to be into a job or into a training program or into a college program or a combination thereof.
So the APA funding is paying for the coaches this year, right?
Through June 2025.
Okay,
Yes, I can.
yep. So, okay, that helps. And then there's another 150 grant services agreement to Bunker Hill for tuition and fees. So that's where
That sounds
the
like-
400 basically comes
Mhm.
together. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow on this
It's
one,
hard with
but
the shorthand.
Ew,
Yeah,
I have a follow-up question related to the Bunker piece. Because I'm having a hard time remembering from when Regina and Chani presented to us. But so if we're working with students, are the coaches identifying the students the summer after graduation or leading up to when they graduate? And then helping them like enroll in Bunker Hill while are they taking like developmental education classes at Bunker Hill, or are they taking like credit bearing classes working towards a degree? I'm trying to remember that piece because I remember this as like they were helping them decide if they were going to college or not. And so would appreciate a refresher on that front.
Annika, that's a perfect question because it helps me address what Tom was bringing up too. So we just got our second cohort about a month ago. That handoff is done by the counselors at the high school who have identified the highest need students. And so they spend from January to June meeting Chani and Regina, getting to know them so that there's that super warm handoff. And Tom, you're right, there are counselors at Bunker Hill, but there are a lot of statistics about where that handoff doesn't happen and the students just fall through the cracks. They also have such a huge caseload that it's easier for students to get lost. We are very intentional because we're in the community. When they start to sort of disappear on us because we are in the community, we know who they're working with and we can bring them back in to make sure that we get a successful outcome.
The case manager to student ratio in most community colleges is one case manager to 1,000 students.
yeah, so they're not getting a lot of one-on-one.
Rachel?
Yeah, so one of the other layers that we've been talking a lot about, because Chadi and Regina are also, not only are they doing the coaching, they are also building this program live while they're coaching these first couple of cohorts. And one of the things that they've been giving a lot of thought to is what does that off-ramp look like? Like, how do they help that student go from 18-year-old, just graduated, trying to figure out what's next in their life, to being the confident self-advocate necessary to finish off their career and move on. And so that's the trajectory that they're really working on. It's like, how do they help that student make that transition and have that really be a smooth handoff so that that person, goes from having the hand-holding of the guidance team at the high school to having, the coaches intensively helping them through the first summer while they're getting ready to start whatever comes next. And then by the time they're in like year 2 or year 3, really that is to say, hey, don't forget to sign up. Like, you know, it's really a light touch, and so that they're sort of in a place by the time they're, you know, 2-3 years into the program, in a place where they're ready to, they don't need help anymore. They have a resource, but they don't need help.
So part of what the coaches would also be doing is kind of following them as they progress. Because, and then do we need, is there funding that needs to be put in there for that? Because I know up at the high school, and I know, Jim, we try to do it there after seniors graduate. You're trying to follow them to see, you know, how many of them are, if they're in electrical, how many of them kept going that way, you know, like 2, 3, 4 years out. And it's a difficult thing to do. It's a little bit easier now with social media, we found, but because a lot of them stay in contact more, you know, so. But I didn't know if, you know, as part of the ask for that too. So at the end of the day is, what is the ask of us? I think, you know, what is the city, you know, where's the gap, and what do you think you need?
So the gap right now that we think is there is for this year is probably in the around 100,000. What the FY20, like what comes after June of 2025 is a question mark. The ARPA funding, there was a change in the ARPA standard, like the ARPA guidelines, and we were able to keep on our ARPA funded staff to continue to use ARPA funding to fund them through the next 6 months, which is a huge help, right? But, you know, we don't know what the budget situation is going to look like next year. There's going to be multiple ARPA funded staff that hit budget cycle, you know, next year on the question of moving them to the general fund. And so we do think that this is potentially something we want to keep high on the trust radar, because we want to see how this program keeps going. You know, we're excited that we get 2 full academic years to pilot this, and then we think so far it's turning out to be a really great success. The results from the participants is fantastic, and so depending on where things land on city budget this time next year, we might be asked back with a bigger ask.
So what we're looking at, probably 25 to 26 would be probably close to 600,000 to fund the whole program, right?
Potentially, yeah.
As we got here now, and that doesn't add for inflation, so.
But we don't know. I mean, we don't know what grants will look like. We don't know what the general fund picture might look like. But that's sort of the worst case scenario.
Well, the concern, you know, I think with the general fund would be if construction is down and development's down, the city's going to be in a difficult position, you know, with all the different programs it has now. So and then, because that's always been the concern about the app, you know, it's here for now, but what happens next year? So, okay, but at least that we can keep that in the back of our minds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So do we want to? So I guess for priority 3, do we want to look at, you know, funding that for 100?
That would make sense to me.
Yeah, I'd be in
Because
support of
this
that.
is a really important program, you know.
Jim, do you have a?
Yeah, just real quick, it is, they do a great job. I did a little bit more research after their presentation. They, you know, they work well with our guidance counselors, and it's just, they do an outstanding job. And there is that short amount of time to get these kids where we need them to be from the end of high school to the next step. So it's very important. And that's where ultimately you lose those kids that are on the bubble. So it's very important to get the kids involved, and I agree with it 110%. I do have to sign off. I do have to go pick my son up. I apologize. I let William know. And thank you very much, and everybody have a happy 4th.
See you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
See you later.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right. So on priority 4, a lot of this is pending, or it's sort of happening. It is happening. It's happening with the mass hire program.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And so, Jen, you had shared information with us last time. Does this mean that we could zero this for this year and sort of see how things go, with the idea of maybe doing some funding in future years?
I think so, Annika. The representative of Mass Hire said we need to let this roll out to see what our ask will be of the trust in the future.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're doing the pilot this summer, right?
This summer, and we're crossing our fingers for September, Tom.
Okay, great.
Cool. Okay. Priority 5, it sounds like a lot of folks are thinking we keep that 0 for now since we have so much money in hand for this topic. So that brings us to priority 6. And this is around digital literacy programming. Let's see, there's $140,000 in ARPA funding to staff the Digital Bridge Initiative and provide materials. $51,000 in ARPA funding to teach digital literacy classes through June 2024 and provide devices. An unknown amount to outfit new computer labs, the Mystic Apartments and SCC, meaning they have an amount that is unknown. Is it sufficient?
Those projects are closed, Annika. They are outfitted.
Okay, super.
So there's 0 need?
0? Oh, because this is past spending. Okay, got it. And so that means the question here would be around if there are things that are ending that we would continue.
And that
Or
100,
if there's new things, I guess.
yeah. And so the 51,000 goes through June of 2024. Is that true for the 140,000 as well? Did everything with ARPA get extended to June 2024?
Okay.
Yeah, so the staff also for the digital bridge is also extended until June.
Until June, as in like right now.
25.
Sorry,
Okay.
June 25.
Thank
you,
Lauren.
Yeah.
I introduced the wrong.
We're really excited. Our team is huge. It's great.
Yeah,
Okay,
amazing.
that's awesome. Okay, cool. I was like, we are in June 2024. I'm
Yeah,
confused why
sorry.
nobody thinks it's large. Okay. Okay, so that could be a 0 for this year then, and it's also sort of to see what happens as time goes on.
Yeah, I think so. Wow, we're saving a lot of money in 2024.
Okay, then we had this idea, which I believe was brought to us last year, of a benefits specialist case manager to support Somerville residents to enroll in benefits programs with an emphasis on workers experiencing job loss.
And I think I would have to look back to see what the estimated amount was for that. But I'm also curious to hear if people think this is still a priority that warrants funding.
Well, I think that when we talked about this, we were, thinking about, a person who, just help people connect to benefits, like a CAS or something like that. But I don't think we really ever talked about like where exactly that person would sit, how exactly people would interact with them. Most of the time these case managers are attached to a specific organization and sometimes even to a specific program. So it's pretty easy to connect people to them, and it's just like, walking down the hall. And
It's
so
almost
not
like
exactly.
you're looking for an RFP to this different service providers to see if they could do something like this, right? Or are they already doing it?
Well,
I think
yeah,
I'm pretty sure, some of them are doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, SEC should be able to assume, right?
Right.
And,
Well, and it's a lot of coordination, because if you assume, okay, we put out an RFP, SCC gets it, then SCC students will be served. How will anybody else?
how do they all interact?
Yeah, benefit. So it's actually a little bit more complicated when you think about implementing it.
I think we probably need to get into the weeds on that one a little bit more. It was funny because a lot of them, I think out of everyone that looked at it the last time, there were 2 people that wanted to fund it and everyone else was 0. So I think it was 2 because it was kind of vague.
Right. Yeah, complicated into how it would work.
I mean, that could be something that we have a subcommittee think about over the next several months.
Yeah.
Or the second half of the year, rather. So we're not necessarily allocating dollars to it right now, but we are allocating our thoughts to think about what we could do here, or better understand the need. Rachel?
Yeah, I was processing this a little bit, that I think it's worth us talking to our colleagues in Health and Human Services As well as, I was just asking Jen, via text, like, we have, SEC does job navigation services. And that's a position that is funded, by community benefits funding right now. And that funding, I think we still have 2 more years on that funding.
Oh, okay.
I mean, one thing that's interesting about this is they say with an emphasis on workers experiencing job loss. So you could almost imagine if somebody loses a job, there's a 1-800 number that they can contact, get a hold of this person. They help them with unemployment benefits if they're eligible, food stamps, housing. So, I mean, that person could even sit at City Hall.
Well, it almost sounds like, because, City Hall does have some of those services now, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you have the housing group now, right? And I don't.
Yeah, Health and Human Services is doing some of the case
stuff,
management
right?
work. So I guess it's a question of if the need is being met. But yeah, there's definitely existing referral sources, assuming an employer is going through the appropriate steps when they have to let people go, which is an assumption.
Right.
But
that's something to add to the job quality, guys.
Yeah.
Guys or gals list.
Yeah.
Jen?
There is a program at SEC that is currently ARPA funded that I've been overseeing, that I'm trying to help them continue funding. It's called the Women's Empowerment Program. And it's done with a clinician that they're staffing externally, as well as their job search coaches. They were finding that their female clients were dropping off the caseloads in droves because of all of the overwhelming demands on women in the work world with family situations. So that program has been very, very successful. And a lot of those women will be graduating next week.
Oh, cool.
And you said you're looking for funding for that? Or
Yeah,
I think
funding?
Yeah. So that'll probably be an ask next year, right?
It's over in the next month, Tom, so very soon. And to your point, Tom, this is the ARPA cliff.
Yeah. Yep. So that might be how we can tie into that. Jennifer, would you be able to give us more information on that?
Yes, I'll share the contract with William.
If subcommittee like you asked, then we could.
Yeah.
I do know, and I know that I was frustrated when I was chair of the Housing Authority. You have a lot of different groups that are providing services throughout the city, but there was no like one clearinghouse where somebody could go to figure out who's doing what and what can I, and because what we would also see duplication of services among service providers. And I think my guess is it's still happening today because we never quite figured it out. At the Housing Authority did, we basically laid it out and said, what we found was almost everybody was serving young kids and nobody was serving teenagers. So they weren't happy with me at the time, but we threw out all the old RFPs and said, okay, we're writing new ones and we needed spread out some different age groups and stuff like that. And it ended up working, but even for those type of services, whether it's social services or housing or whatever, there was no like one place we could send anybody to, So that's something, when I read this too, I was wondering, could we almost create something that would be the go-to person, for, and then tell. So it almost, something like that. I think we've talked about this before, but I do know it was a frustration back then trying to figure it out.
Definitely a frustration for us, Tom. There's something called the Somerville Hub, and our colleagues in Health and Human Services and Office of Immigrant Affairs have launched it. A lot of folks are using it as the platform to search for services. But as we have these conversations, we hit complexities and obstacles because certain sections of the community are going to certain areas like the Housing Authority because of trust or it's familiar. So those are the walls we run into is the trust in the community and where they're going. but we are making more of an effort to talk to each other to make sure we're not duplicating and to sort of lean on each other and help each other out. The furthest I've gotten so far, because it's very time consuming, is Scale and SEC. They don't spend a day without the three of us chatting with each other. So that's been working very well. And we're working across the city, but it takes a while.
Right.
One of the big challenges with a lot of benefits programs is just understanding all the rules and regulations and eligibility and making sure people fill out the forms right. And it does seem to me that probably one of the biggest inefficiencies is having like all these tiny, case managers sitting in these different organizations trying to figure that out. And the more they spend on trying to figure out the eligibility requirements, the less they're actually serving somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
So I am wondering if another possibility might be just having one person in the city who knows all these eligibility requirements and how the programs work and can be like a help desk for people sitting at Scale or SCC if they've got questions. I don't know if that would be helpful, but it does strike me that there's a lot of complexity in these programs.
Hi, Rachel.
That's the goal of the hub, is to try and get all of that into a digital platform that can be shared across all the city departments, but also all of the all of the nonprofit organizations that also work in Somerville. And the underlying platform that the hub is based on, William and Jen, we were all in the training together on it. It's I think it's the same platform that's being used in other communities in the area. Because the idea was it's not just, some of the organizations that you might turn to might actually have a Cambridge address, right? But they serve Somerville, or a Boston address and they're serving Somerville. And actually we've got one that's like a Lowell, one of our small business support programs, they're actually based in Lowell. And it's okay, well, that doesn't feel immediate, but at the same time it is in the eyes of the feds, and that's who funds them, right? And so there's, trying to put it all on paper has been one of the goals that Jen and Chris Hosman and others in HHS and in various places across the city have been trying to figure out.
So it's like a common application that collects all the information you would need for food benefits, housing benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
And mostly also sort of the staff, right? Because there's a lot of this is how do you help somebody who starts the job? And right, Jen's been thinking a lot about this for when Chadi and Regina started, right? Okay, they're going to work with these students, and okay, how do they need to know that they don't have to know it all, that they can turn to HHS, they can turn to the Office of Housing Stability and all these other folks to connect with other services.
And how is the hub funded and for how long?
It's permanent, Vicki, and it's through Health and Human Services and Summer Promise. So there's, like Rachel's saying, a front end and a back end. So you, Vicki, as the resident, could think, I need such and such service, and you do a quick search through the hub, and it gives you all of us that do that type of work in the city. And then I, as the provider, and it can be an external nonprofit who has an agreement with the city, can pop into the back end and see where Vicki's been and what Vicki needs, so that I can make that quick phone call to you and say, this is the exact office you need to call, and the referral gets dispersed. And we can all peek in there as the internal folks.
Sounds like it might be being accomplished then.
We're hoping.
So maybe on this, Jen, you could share more information about the Women's Empowerment Program. And
the hub, yeah.
In the hub, we can check out the hub. And then when we do our next prep meeting, me, Vicki, and William, maybe you could share that and we could bring it to the board for the next meeting. Sure. Okay, cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. Okay. So it's 7:50, and I feel like to identify where we are.
Yeah, and everything else was zeroed out by everybody.
The one thing I
Except
wanted to
for one.
check on is the
Financial literacy.
financial literacy piece. So this was ARPA funding to a Women's Money Matters for financial literacy programming concluding in June 2024.
So that's 25 now?
Is that 25 now? Or did it end? No, it's ending.
Oh, okay, so then,
Pending.
Okay.
Okay.
how did that one go?
It was one of the best programs I've gotten to oversee, Tom. We've heard a lot of great feedback from the Housing Authority where they primarily ran their workshops.
Yep.
I can share the contract with William as well. So this is the first time that Women's Money Matters implemented stipends at our request. They implemented stipends for the participants who went through and for their volunteer coaches who teach the financial literacy. They were doing that for the coaches as a supplemental. They've never done that before, but they felt like because those coaches come from the community, they should be getting a stipend. We also built in funding for childcare and food, and it worked very well at the Housing Authority. They are going to continue in Somerville because of other funding that they found, but they cannot sustain the stipend portion. So they've been worried about that. They did such a great job with recruitment that some advocacy groups in the city have shared out ahead of time that round 2 or round 3 will be happening again in September with a stipend. And we're working on clarifying that there is no stipend in September. So that is something they brought to me as a request for me to look for funding.
How much money would the stipends be?
I would have to look again. I'm sorry, Annika, I have so many contracts in my head.
Oh yeah, no worries. Only do that top of mind. So I think we're very pro stipend here, and I think that it's challenging to learn financial literacy skills when you're also dealing with trying to find a place, someone to watch your kiddo and things like that. So I feel like we could talk about the stipend piece. Rachel, I see you're raising your hand. Do you want me to call on you?
Because the September deadline, I was forgetting about the September detail here. That if we were to actually get money out to them by September, like to a group like that by September, we would need to move fairly quickly. So the layer I was thinking of is perhaps there could be a subcommittee that meets to keep the conversation rolling and get to a place by maybe next meeting where we're at a spot to make a recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking we could do, like, this sounds pretty straightforward. It seems like we should be able to do a vote in July.
The other, oh,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, sorry.
I was also just running math and at broad numbers. I was looking at my own sheet tracking as we've been talking. And then even if we were to allocate $100,000 to this, we still come under $1 million as what we've allocated for 2024. And that's a little less than half of what was the budget for last time. And so I don't know the numbers. Jen will have to check, but I feel like there's play there in the context of what we've been talking about of saving a lot of our future pipeline for future.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jen?
Just 3 things to note is 1, they shared a dashboard with me in success stories, so I'll add that when I share the contract. The other thing is they were surprised where the volunteer coaches returned the stipends and wanted to give it to the students. So there was that reallocation that we didn't expect. And then the third thing is they disclosed with me that they're working with the universities that are working on universal basic income in Somerville and other cities. And they've been tasked with doing the research on the ARPA cliff. And so they can share that with us as well, because I know we've struggled with that with the stipends.
Okay, great. Do we have a July meeting on the books?
I don't think we do. I don't think we've confirmed it.
Okay. I guess on this, while I grab my phone, does anyone want to be on a subcommittee to put together, I think what the subcommittee actions would be looking at the materials that Jen shares and then suggesting a number. Alternatively, I am happy to look at, I think we'll all see the materials, the 10 chairs in the meeting, but I'm happy to look at those in advance with William and bring a number to the board if we either don't have capacity to have a subcommittee meeting in the next couple of weeks.
Are we talking specifically about financial literacy, or are we talking
Yes.
about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in that, like you said, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I think if they come back with the ask, if they can figure out what the stipend would be, I don't even know if you need a subcommittee, you can just put it to the board, you know?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, because I know I'd be in favor of it, so it sounds like it's great programs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just to
so,
save you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be easier, just thinking scheduling wise. Okay. So then I think what we're looking at is if we did, even just as a guess, $100,000 for the financial literacy stipends, that would be putting us at like $350,000 in addition to the $750 that we just allocated.
Mhm.
So then that would be holding $3 million. Yep.
Mhm.
So I think that seems to be where the board's coalescing. I know I personally feel good about that because I think it would be good for us to have money to spend in the future.
Mhm.
And so it sounds like some of our next steps here are Jen is going to share the information about the Women's Empowerment Program, and then Somerville Hub, and then in a little more time-sensitive fashion, the Women's Money Matters Program, and then amount that would be needed for the stipends. And then we'll have a vote on that in our next meeting. And then I think this has been a good conversation. The other pieces would be
The 100,000 priority number 3.
Yep.
Workshops and incentives.
mhm. So that would be that our next, let's see, process-wise, would we vote to obligate that next time? And then do we have to do an RFP, William?
I think we need to better understand the breakdown of what we're going and whether we're seeing it as something that city staff have capacity to staff or run.
Yeah.
And then there would probably be an RFP related to emergency funds for students.
Okay.
But I think we can talk with the coaches a little bit more about what the breakdown of those numbers might look like.
Okay. That sounds good.
With the RFP for the administration of emergency funds, is that what that would be?
Probably, yeah.
Because that's where who makes that decision? Who decides what's an emergency, what isn't, you know?
Okay. So then I think where we are is figuring out a date for our next meeting where we'll have quorum in these summer months.
Yeah, I'm inclined to, I mean, we can put a tentative date, but just because we don't have everyone, I'm inclined to just put it out to kind of a doodle, unless we want to just tentatively say it's the second Tuesday or whatever we had been doing.
What is our cadence?
Well, we were on second Tuesday, and that's not this month.
Okay, that's what we're on. Alrighty. Yeah, so I think a doodle sounds good. Oops. A doodle sounds good. I would personally aim for the second Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm open.
I am busy, but that doesn't mean I can't miss a meeting.
Okay, I'll send something out for that date and also give a couple other options.
Perfect. Thanks, William. Okay. Did Jen leave? Okay. Hi, Jen.
Oh, she's still on.
No, she's still there.
Oh, no. Hi, Jen. Sorry. Did someone leave?
Rand's gone.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks, Silvana. Okay, so I think that concludes our business.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that one.
All right, all in favor of adjourning? Tom,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Annika, yes. Meeting adjourned at 8:01 p.m.
Fantastic.
Look how efficient we were.
Yeah.
Partially in person, right?
William, I'm impressed that the tech survived.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very good.
So
Alrighty.
William, are you letting us know for the new dates?
Yes, I'm gonna reach out about the next meeting date.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good night.
Silvana.
Take
Good night,
care.
Rachel.